Madam Chair.
I call on Simon Court.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have been an employee and I've also acted for an employer. I've managed projects of up to 240 people delivering ultra-fast broadband and other major projects. This involved being responsible for the welfare, the health and safety, the employment terms and conditions, and all of the other benefits and obligations that each employee and each subcontractor and members of subcontractor staff had in terms of the engineering construction contracts that I was either supervising or managing as project manager. And I cannot imagine in what world, having engaged people on different salaries, different wages based on their experience, based on all of the matters that an employer needs to take into consideration when making a decision about whether I offer this employee a four-wheel drive ute, a two-wheel drive ute, a fuel card, that they pay for their own fuel and seek compensation, expense that out. Whether some employees, because they work slightly late, get a taxi home and they get that taxi paid for. Whereas others who regularly work late, maybe the same hours, we've paid them through their salary in recognition that, say, if you have to work late on a Friday night to complete the accounts for the monthly claim, that's included in your overall salary package. You don't get a taxi chip. All of these matters come down to an individual consideration between an individual employee or subcontractor or contractor, not included in this, but they are the same people for all intents and purposes doing the work on the building site, and the employer. And if all of these matters may or may not be disclosed, must be required to be disclosed if asked, which is what I understand the intent of the bill is, how on earth is an individual hearing these matters being discussed in their workplace meant to make sense of all of these things and balance them to determine in their own mind whether their package, what they are paid plus benefits, is equivalent to or fair compared to the person working next to them? Well, it's not possible. And I think what the member in charge of this bill has fallen for is the fallacy that a single person or judge can determine what's right for each individual subject to a regime. That is a fallacy. And I challenged the member Camilla Bellich to explain which individual will have the perfect knowledge to make the perfect decision and how to explain that perfect decision to any number of employees who, for whatever reason, have a different balance of salaries and wages and benefits. I don't understand it. And I'll tell you who else tried to do this. I'll tell you who else. The Soviet Union tried this. They worked out, somebody in a bureaucracy in the Kremlin worked out how many nails and how many screws, how many nuts and how many bolts they needed so that they could build trucks and other machines. And it turned out that there was not one person who knew the number of nuts and bolts of various diameters that should be ordered in any given week, in any given month, so they could build the things that the communist Soviet Union wanted to do.
So how
they
does
have
that,
total state
how
control,
does that,
Madam Chair.
How does it relate to
I
this
will
bill?
bring it back to the bill. The point is, Madam Chair, there is no one individual, whether it's in the Kremlin or sitting in this seat as Camilla Bellich is right now, who has the perfect knowledge to put together the individual nut that is what the employer needs them to do and the bolt that is the employee that fits that nut. And so what I would ask the member in the chair, when considering does the member have this perfect information, or imagine at some time if she ever happens to be an employer in the private sector, highly unlikely for a Labor MP, but I mean the earth does go around the sun once a day. Does the member truly believe that when an employee's disclosure of their remuneration is potentially misleading or inaccurate, that they shouldn't be subject to the same kind of punishments that anyone else is for having misled people in their workplace.